Hello, and thank you for joining us for another Changer Chat. I'm Jimmy Cook, co-founder of BTCV, filling in for our regular host, Courtney Govro. Today, we are recording from the Chino High School classrooms in the Amazon jungle with Dolly Beaver. Many of our listeners know Dolly. Dolly is our amazing BTCV community partner in Peru, co-owner of Amazonia Expeditions, and the founder of Angels of the Amazon. And to those of us that have worked with her, she is known as the Peruvian Wonder Woman because of her amazing powers in community development and education. Today, we're going to focus on Dolly's story about connecting with BTCV and orchestrating the partnership that has resulted in completion of the Chino High School. Dolly, thanks for joining us for another Changer Chat.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
So first, tell us why you needed a partner like Be the Change to provide a quality high school education for the Chino community.
Having a partnership with someone like Be the Change was very important to us, first because they believe in education. Be the Change is changing lives like we want to see our students thrive, and we want to make sure that the students really get a good education in order to be able to support themselves, support their families, and really go out there in the world and have an opportunity. And not just for that, but also because funding is very difficult to do it just one person. My organization, I consider small, but we have so many things that we would love to do, and believing in education and having someone else to believe in education, sharing that same goal, and I think it's just the perfect match for us.
That's great. So well said. And tell us a little bit about the condition of the high school before Be the Change and why you actually needed the infrastructure.
Before Be the Change, the infrastructure was just one single house, which was a communal house in the community of Chino. It was like a center for everybody to meet, gather, do parties, or organize meetings, do whatever is needed for the community. But it was built in a low part of the community, and during the wet season, the water rises in the river and it gets flooded. So every year, the building got flooded, damaging the infrastructure severely. Also, it was one big room that was divided with some planks in the middle. Very distracting for the students, very small space, inadequate, very uncomfortable, and also for the teachers, that they couldn't do a good job providing the lessons for their students. Close to the center of the village where community life, it's noisy and distracting, so it wasn't the best setting for them. Moving to the location that we have now made a big difference, but we had our challenges as well.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we move on. But how many, like in the old high school, how many months out of the year would it be flooded, unusable typically?
Between 3 to 4 months, because the water is starting to rise November, December, and the high peak is May, but the students started their lessons or classes in March.
So 3 or 4 months, and here in Peru they go to school all year round, right?
They go from March to December before the holidays, and then they have the vacation, and then they start again.
So much of the normal school year totally unusable, and then far from ideal even when you could use it without the flood season. Yeah. So as you know very well, and the community knows, there's a pretty rigorous application process for a BTCV. It's definitely not easy or simple, especially for that initial application when we're first becoming partners and getting together with your community. So just share with our listeners what the process was like from your perspective and how the community came together to successfully complete that initial application process and become partners.
Well, the process was first we had to send you the proposal, like request the help. Tell us where we are, who we are, and what we're doing, and if you had interest in checking our site to see for yourselves, do an inspection trip. And before that, we talked to the community leaders. They want it. They have to want something. I can't come and tell them this is what you need. Unless they want it, it will work. And so we got together with them and told them what the process was, that we were going to have an inspection from BTC, and they approved, they agree. and we already had the location that we took the inspectors to come and check. We had studied the area. It was the area that didn't flood, so the money that would be invested wouldn't be wasted, and would be something permanent for the community. And the locals were ready to work. The community got excited to learn that they could have a new high school where the students can have each grade a classroom. They could have bathrooms. The teachers can have a better location so they can teach properly, because our students were not getting the highest grades for the area in the jungle. We have several communities and they were having a hard time. I think the parents realized that their kids could do better and they deserve better. Well, we didn't have the funding. And so that was exciting for everyone to have someone support this project financially. And honestly, we could get supplies here in the Amazon the best we can. But if you don't have the tools, you don't have the resources that come from the city, it's very difficult to do it in a way that is going to be long-lasting and sustainable.
So even though it was a pretty rigorous application process, the community saw that it was worth it, would you say, right from the start?
Yes, yes. We knew that we could get approved or not, but we were willing to do our part. We were willing to take the challenge, because sometimes it's a challenge when you never done anything like this and you don't know. But they were ready to work. That was what got me excited, that they were like, yes, we're going to work with them. If they say we are going to supply and you're going to work, we can do that too. And everybody was engaged in basically interested to see the results and what's going to take and how long it's going to be. And so we made a commitment for a long time project all together. And whoever comes to this community, sometimes we have people that come that are from different areas and are new to this community. They know if they come to this community, they will be working.
That's awesome. So it's new members know that Be the Change is a part of it. We're partners for the long haul. And that's honestly, we were so excited too, because you did that so well and the community was engaged from the start. So we knew it would be sustainable, which is the main purpose of that application process. One is to make sure we're doing what you need. So listening first and saying, what does the community need? And then two, making sure it's sustainable and around that. And you've done amazing with that. So as you know, then our board approved the partnership, and then you hosted a site evaluation team to finalize the plans for the first phase of the project. What was that like for you? You have so much experience with international travelers, but what was that like for you? Kind of then, you knew you were, things were going the right direction with the application, but then hosting the team for kind of the final evaluation.
To tell you the truth, I was very confident that you guys were going to like what you would see, because you would also find like we don't have a high school. You will find out that we really don't have any infrastructure that you could call a school for high schoolers. You would find the students that have a face and a name, and you would find also the parents welcoming you, excited and curious at the same time to see who you are. Why do you want to help our community? To me, it wasn't so much that I was concerned that I couldn't be approved, because for what I read, I already knew this is what you do. And I believe in what you do. It's something that matched with what we were looking for to do. And for that, I was confident. The only thing for me was like, who is going to want to come and work in the jungle like we do? Obviously the weather, and just saying the name of Amazon, like, are you crazy? Why?
Yeah, right.
Why there in the middle of nowhere, having so many places that have easier access? But I was also confident that we have a good service that we can provide in logistics, that we have done incredible things logistically and made sure that they happen. And I have an amazing staff. Everybody works, everybody that is in love with the project, literally, because they look forward and they are also from this community. So we do everything that it takes in order to make sure that logistics and the stay of our guests are, well taken care of. But in the same token, I was thinking, like, how many people will they have interested to do? I wasn't sure how would that work. But after all, it's working out really well.
Yeah. Well, your confidence was very well placed, because the things you were sure of, for sure, are some of the foundational pieces for us. And even the things you were worried about actually have turned into some of the best parts, and we never have problems filling these teams. Everybody loves to come here to the jungle. And that kind of leads us, you talked about the things you were worried about. That's some of the unique and really cool parts. So you guys did an amazing job through the whole process, and it's awesome to think now we're completing the high school campus. I think it's our 8th phase on this project, and we're planning on more, and you're an amazing partner and leader. Each phase has been really unique, from the classrooms to the on-site toilets to the teacher house and the amazing Willett Family Bridge, which we'll talk about a little bit later on down the line. But tell us a little bit about the unique aspects of the construction process. How you get the materials here, what types of materials we have to use, and then how the community engages as families in the process, because I think that's really cool.
Yes, to get supplies here on time for when the group arrives, or sometimes in 2 phases, let's say 1 and 2, we start working when the water is high. If we need timber, we have to make sure that the water is high enough so we can have access to some wood. Then wait until it gets dry to get the sand. Sand is ported from a different community that we are buying from, providing an income to that community to collect sand, because the sand here has too much clay and it's not good to use with concrete. Unlike the other community has, from there, gets transported here by boat into Chino's community, and then they take it from the riverbank all the way to the site, which is not a long way, but if you're thinking about how high the riverbank is into the community, and then you're walking with a sack of sand, and sometimes it's wet sand, it's a backbreaker. Each community gets a number depending how many sacks we have. They could have each 20 each, 25, and they work it through what we call mañaneos. Mañaneos are when the community goes at 5:30 and works like 2 hours early morning before the sun is too strong, so they can work. If they finish that day, is fine. If they don't, they can have another day. They can do as many in one day. Maybe the whole family would carry in one day, or maybe just 2 members of the family. However, we give them like a deadline. This is how many days we have, and by this date, all the sand has to be there, because they also have to attend their farms and other things like that. So we give them that time. Same thing with wood. We would get a group from here to go scouting if we have any dead wood. If not, somebody might have in the lot something that is going to be sustainable in a way that we're not destroying in our surrounding areas, because they also value wood here very much. And so we do that, and then we have to bring someone that can do the cutting. He's got the saw, the machines, and he knows how to mill, and they go and carry the wood from the interior of the forest. That is what is the hardest part too, because sometimes they have to walk between an hour going and coming back. They go by boat, and that's how they carry. And now that gets poured into the community's riverbank too, like the port. From there, it has to be carried all the way to the site. But before carrying it, it has to be treated. No matter how we treat here, bugs are bugs. Even then, you get sometimes still problems with bugs because it's wood and it's fresh. Now that has to be dry. It stands for a while close to the area here in the front in the sun, and then after that it gets ported. We also have deadlines for that. We don't do it all at once because we don't want to get too soon some of the supplies that can be damaged with the weather before being used. Everything else that gets purchased in Iquitos has to be ported by boat. Sometimes we charter boats that are cargo boats. Sometimes we bring whatever we can in the transportation that we have for our business, tourism. And Bruno, who is our foreman, is in charge of making sure that nothing is missing when the groups are here and ready to work. We have to have everything, from one piece of nail to everything, you name it, and he does very well. So the work is distributed among groups. When we work together, even the entire community looks to be a large number of members of the community are children. Children, sometimes very little children. You don't see many young adults. After high school, many of them try to go and make a life or get an education or just go to the city. And so therefore you have adults, a few young adults, very few, and then you have teenagers that still are in high school, and then a lot of children. And when the groups get together to work, some of them have to be husband and wife at the same day, or the groups of Manos Amazonicas, which is the artisans, has another group. Then the PTA has also a group. So they're all trying to work together. Okay, which group are you going to work for? If you're working as the mom from PTA, you still have to work the last day as a member of the artisan group. So they want to make sure that when the groups work, they have enough to do. They really help, and not everybody at the same time. Because they have to also attend. Remember, in this part of the world, we don't have the facility of a supermarket or grocery stores at your hand to buy. So they have to collect their food, they have to go fishing. Sometimes they have to go to their farm. If they finish their plantains or yucca, they have to go and bring it. And if the entire family is working, somebody has to stay to cook for the rest. And so that's very, very important that we understand, and it's part of it, because the process of building and collecting the supplies is very hard. Before the groups arrive, to get all of them ready, it's one of the hardest part of the jobs that we do. Sometimes we have the cargo arriving 1 in the morning, and everybody is up cheering, laughing, and whistling and singing and teasing each other, joking about whatever. It's 1 in the morning. If they're that grateful to get up and work, it's very inspiring for me. Sometimes I'm here, barely awake, and while they're carrying heavy loads of concrete bags to take to the site, it motivates me. It's like, well, if they're doing that, I'm glad I'm doing my part. So I just want to continue doing this. Is good to see, and it's a good feeling.
And just for the listeners, I mean, this is coming up a riverbank about 100 feet at least, very steep from the river, carrying all this supplies that she's talked about, and then going back about a quarter-mile bridge, a quarter-mile walk back to the campus with all these different supplies. So heavy wood, sand, cement, tools, all that kind of stuff. And I would say it's really a continued process. So we'll be done this week for the 2021 build. But then essentially you'll start again, right? Start planning for and preparing and bringing in initially materials for 2022. And the rotation is another favorite part of mine, because one, it gives us perspective, right? Like we understand, like you just had to explain. I mean, the reason they're rotating in groups and families is because they have to live. They have to do their homework at home.
Survive.
Survive. And but for us, it's that great perspective for us. But then I think it's also neat because then we get to see the whole community in the course of the week that we work here. So we get to work with different groups and see how they come through and do their job with it. So it's just amazing, and you do amazing with that. So high school campus is pretty much complete this time. So tell us then how you know this was the dream. So far, what have you noticed in terms of the changes in the students and teachers now that we have a fully functional high school campus?
Oh, wow, the changes. We have really very positive changes with the students' attitude towards going to school. That alone has changed. Of course, we have a beautiful bridge to walk in. The students want to come more presentable because they feel they are going to a building that they belong to. They want to treat their classrooms with more respect, because now this is mine. It's not that I'm going to move every time something else is going to happen. My classroom is going to be undone and then have to put back together. No, this is really ours. And if you notice, they wanted to paint, they wanted to work in their desk to improve. We have young children. The older ones always try to teach the young children to help take care of it. So the students also are changing into their desires to do more, the desire to have a vocation. Before, you couldn't hear that often saying like, yeah, I'm going to finish high school, I'm going to continue my education. It was just, I'll finish high school. Well, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do after. But now it's like, okay, there's all kinds of vocation that they talk about, being a police officer, being a chef, being a tour guide, they want to go, or in some cases even construction. They see, oh wow, somebody's doing construction. I didn't think of it. I have the ability, but I didn't think that could make me money. We talk about that, and we also talk about how the low rate of teenagers that are staying in school at home, you know, they don't have to immediately elementary school and get married, or when they were going to school that they really didn't feel that they have some privacy in their classrooms. Like if they're girls, they want to meet or talk or do things. It wasn't possible then. I can see more confident girls already, and of course the boys too, but when I say girls, feel that they see that they have a place, either one classroom or one room, and they can have their own space, that the respect, oh, this is our cabin, this is my desk. Because over in the old classrooms, they had to share, and sometimes, okay, this is my desk, oh, but I sat there yesterday where there's not enough. So now they have things that it's theirs and they can use every day. So very many positive changes. Also, we wanted to learn more. In coming from elementary school, now I have a high school to go. I don't have to worry about going to the city because I have no family. I can't afford it.
And sending to the city is hard on the family,
and everyone,
financially, but then also to lose the worker, right? The help
the
with everything. And then it's just scary, right? It's just so
scary.
Different from the village, And so before, it was like the choice of a quality education in the city, which is scary and often fails and expensive, versus being at home and not having a quality education. And now we've kind of brought that together so they can get a great quality education right here at home, and then still go on when they're ready, right? To go to the next phase, which now they have those dreams and those capabilities. We see that every time. Even the short time we're here, we see that every time. And each year, and I love that you mentioned too, you know, now they have their own desk and their own classroom, and the teachers can, right, they can kind of decorate the classroom how they want now for each individual one. So it's just that kind of ownership and pride component that elevates education. And then I also love, because you always say, and what better laboratory in the whole world than the jungle? Right?
I mean, the kids find all kinds of amazing creatures sometimes, and that they are wandering and playing like in a way that, oh, look at this bug. Do you see the leg? Do you see this? And I'm like, where is it? I can't see, but they do. And they get in the ground, and it's just curiosity that opens their eyes to the world. And it's a wonderful thing also to see now with the mixing the boys and the girls and sharing a bathroom. I mean, yes, we take for granted in some cases a desk and a chair, but sharing a bathroom in a place that's so important. We didn't have that. We didn't have that, and for many people, maybe for people who are listening, it's just a bathroom. But here, it's a bathroom that it could save a life, because we're in the jungle. If they're using the forest, you know, we have other things that are not so friendly there. So having a bathrooms here in the school is a luxury.
So I wish I could talk about that all day, as you know, Dolly, but separate girls and boys toilets that are clean makes a huge difference in education. We have that here thanks to the partnership with the community, the Van Vechten family, who really contributed and raised money for that, I think on our second project here. But they're beautiful facilities right there on campus, and it makes a huge difference. So I'd encourage our listeners to read about that, both in our book and then just honestly in evidence-based essays on what separate boys and girls toilets do for education, because it's pretty amazing. And another unique part, then, let's just finish up by talking about the Willett Family Bridge. You mentioned it, but we call it the Willett Family Bridge to the Future. And talk about how that, you know, we didn't really think about that early on, but then it's become a major shift in the way that the campus is connected to the village, and kind of that whole dynamic from your perspective.
Well, we didn't think at the beginning in the process, and that was one of the concerns I had when we brought the inspection, because to take them to the site, it was difficult to get due to the trail that is swampy and wet all the time. slippery.
Yeah.
No
I
matter
mean, when we
what
first
we did.
came to get back there, we'd have 3 guys with machetes ahead of
Yeah,
us.
we had
for
to
getting for over a
trailblaze.
quarter mile. Yeah, so you're right.
And just thinking, how are we gonna get, even if we start building, how are we gonna get stuff there? It was one of my concerns that maybe will seem very difficult to do. In my mind, I was like, difficult, but we can do it. I didn't know how exactly we could do it, but in my mind was like, okay, we will have a way. But then every time the water came up, we noticed that the students were going either walking in the water past ankle height and taking off their shoes with their backpacks, or by canoes when the water was higher, good enough to paddle on a canoe. And the place that didn't flood is the school area. And so it made it difficult at the time, but also gave you a positive outlook. The students really want to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
They were going, and it didn't stop them. But then having the bridge, the idea of the Willard family creating this project, it was really something that the community also jumped on, saying like, yeah, we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
As we know, this terrain was difficult to dig.
Yeah.
It was very, very difficult. We had even the children get in the holes and do it with their hands to get out some of the things that we need to get out.
Yeah.
Everybody worked in this bridge. Some had days. I remember having young students going like with the shovels, shift things very quickly because it was brutal, I have to say. Everybody worked very hard. And even for the locals, they would just sit there with the shovels, okay, in the ground, like, okay, I did it, your turn, passing. Because there's about 200 holes that we had to dig.
200, just for our listeners, 200 huge post holes that have to support a walkway bridge. So like 6x6s on each side, 200 of these holes for the whole quarter-mile long bridge that takes us back there. So it definitely accomplished its main purpose right away. And it's also covered now, which was our last project here. So it's just awesome. So it definitely accomplished its main purpose of, safe, easy, dry transportation in their uniforms like you talked about. I love that. They go in their uniforms. You can even ride a bike on it if you need to. Some of the kids from other villages come on bikes now. But then talk a little bit about maybe you did, Dolly, to be honest with you, but I didn't at least understand how that connected the community and how they made it so much more. The campus was they still weren't distracted because it's enough away, but now it's much more connected to the community and parents feel better about it, right? Can you explain a little bit?
The community uses the bridge now too.
Yep.
The community, because several people in the community, within the community, have their farms behind, and also connects with the trail that goes to the other village of San Pedro. If you walk from here at least an hour and a half, you can reach San Pedro in the dry season. And so the bridge is very attractive. When they walk, they can't spend money in gas or they don't want to paddle. They would walk from the village. If they have an emergency, they run and they come to the village and they can use the bridge. Many times we have the little ones walking there and playing and riding their bikes. And sometimes when the water is high, and we still have around the homes here flooded areas, the kids come and play in the bridge. Also, it's dry in campus, so all the community congregates there. The only area that is dry, not flooded, they congregate. And the whole entire bridge is just like a festivity of people having, walking, sitting, talking, because there's no other areas that are dry to have big crowds and to socialization. So that kind of gives you not just a bridge, but it's almost like a plaza, if you will. And once they get together, they're able to have their social time, play soccer, volleyball, someone is selling something, the kids are playing, they play with canicas, or the moms are sitting there watching and they have the baby, and things like that makes it much more colorful to see. all of that. And it's full of joy because the kids are just playing.
Yeah, you see that every time. I just love that part because it's become part of the community now, which the high school should be, right? And now they're not afraid of their kids having to go back there to school. So wrapping up now, we're pretty much finished with the high school. What would be perfect from here on out? What would be the next phases that you think you and the community would just love to see for the campus?
For the campus, if they are allowing us to have the construction of an elementary school to put together with the high school, so we can call it elementary and high school, that would be a wonderful thing. I hope.
Thank you. That was perfect, and a perfect way to end it, because that is definitely our dream together, and it's been an amazing partnership. You truly are the Peruvian Wonder Woman. You testify to that name every single time. And thank you all for joining us for another Changer Chat. If you like these Changer Chats and our mission in education-focused development aid, please consider supporting BTCV through our website at btcv.us. To read more stories about Dolly and our partner project in Peru, order our book, Hand Delivered Hope, on Amazon.com today. Thank you, and be the change.